Hello, good evening, all of you.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am,
How are you doing? Yes.
ma'am, this is my first class, ma'am.
Yeah, I see you. I see your name. Your this is your first class. Okay. So let me tell you, we are going to be doing today. We are going to do a new chapter, constitutional design. Just take out your textbook and in political science. Sorry, in civics, we are going to do constitutional design. Hi, Yukta.
Hi, ma'am.
How are you?
Fine, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, without any delay, let's start. Okay. So, I'm going to share my screen. All of you all are ready, right? Okay. There is someone else is joining. We'll wait for them to join.
Ma'am, actually, I don't have my textbook here right now, ma'am.
Don't, no problem. I will be sharing the textbook. Okay. Hi,
Oh,
Shravan.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Good, ma'am. How are you?
Good, good. So, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to share the textbook also. Okay. We are going to start our new chapter, constitutional design. Fine. All of you all see my screen, right? Okay. Anybody has any idea what's the constitution?
ma'am, it is a rule book that is based on certain ideas and which is applied to every citizen in the country.
Yeah. So no government can run the state according to your wishes. Okay. Nobody has. There is a rule book. There are the rules and regulations that every government has to follow. Even the elected government cannot apply anything that what they feel like. So it is a rule book that has been laid down by the founders of the country, and it has to be followed. So yeah, so that is the constitution. So we will in this chapter we are going to study how is the constitution formed, who makes the constitution, and what is the method to make the constitution, and can we bring changes in the constitution. So there is a provision for almost all of these. And in the beginning of the chapter, we are going to study about South Africa. Anybody knows anything about South Africa?
Ma'am, it is the country in the continent of Africa which fought against racial discrimination.
Yeah, they had a very wide struggle. They had a long struggle of racism and racist discrimination was there. Okay, now in South Africa, there were three types of people living: the white, yeah, the black, and the colored. The colored are people like us. We are neither very black nor very white, right? So this was there was the white were although the white were the minority, they were the ruling people and non-white people in South Africa. So there was a lot of discrimination in South Africa on the basis of the skin color. Yeah, so this discrimination was encouraged by the white government and they were the ruling government. Okay, now because of all this, the black people had to face a lot of problems, and there were non-whites were not allowed to live in the areas of the whites. There was a certain area that was strictly for the white, and no colored and black people were allowed over there. So like here, you should just read this board. Okay, if you enter these premises at night, you will be listed as missing. Guards, armed guards shoot on sight. Savage dogs devour the corpse. Means a army man will shoot you and a dog will eat you up. Yeah. So these kind of a dangerous and discriminative designs were signs were put up, and even if a black person needed to go to a white area, they needed a permit. So of course, nobody was happy with this discrimination, and there was discrimination also in public places like railways. Okay, There were in parking system, private property, no parking, driving through or turning around, and there was not there was a separate staircase for the Euro for the white and a separate one for the blacks. And it is not that it is just there were in parks there were separate benches for Europeans and whites and for non-whites. Okay, now it was not, there was a special, there was a discrimination also in the medical facilities. Okay, the blacks were separated from, it is not just that is a, there is a separate facility for blacks and whites. The facilities given for the whites were luxurious, okay, and of good quality. And for that of the blacks was very poor facility and it was very normal or you can say poor quality. Okay, also the black people did not have the right to vote. Okay, and this color discrimination was called the apartheid system. So this term apartheid, this a is a little silent. Par, this syllable apartheid, okay, is a special term of the racial discrimination, that system that was followed in South Africa.
Ma'am,
Yeah,
I have a doubt.
yeah.
Ma'am, in the different type of race people in South Africa, as you said, there were white, colored, and black people. So, according to that, in discrimination, would the colored people come under the black people or the
The
white?
colored and black were put in one category, and the white were put in as very special and luxurious. They were the given the
Okay,
priority, you can say. They were the premium class.
okay, ma'am.
Yeah. So anyone who opposed, where was I? So anyone who opposed the apartheid system would be shot dead, or you can say they would be anyone who was against apartheid system was killed or put to jail. Okay. So let us talk about the what your textbook is writing. Okay, somebody read this, please. Uh, yeah, let's start from here. We'll start from here. Democratic Constitution in South Africa, and there is a quote here. Sampath, you read from here.
Yes, ma'am. I have fought against white domination and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It has an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but it needs to be, if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. This was Nelson Mandela being tried for treason by white South African government. He and seven other leaders were sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964 for daring to oppose the apartheid regime in his country. He spent the next 27 years in South Africa's most dreaded prison, Robben Island. Ma'am,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Start.
struggle against apartheid. Apartheid was the name of system of racial discrimination unique to South Africa. The white Europeans imposed this system on South Africa. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the trading companies from Europe occupied it with arms and force in the way they occupied India. But unlike India, a large number of whites had settled in South Africa and became the local rulers. The system of
Hmm.
apartheid divided the people and labeled them on the basis of their skin color. The native people of South Africa are black in color. They are made up of three-fourths of the population and were called as blacks. Besides these two groups, there were people of mixed races who were called colored and people who migrated from India. The white rulers treated all non-whites as inferiors. The non-whites did not have voting rights. The apartheid system was particularly oppressive for the blacks. They were forbidden from living in white areas. They could work in white areas only if they had a permit. Trains, buses, taxis, hotels, hospitals, schools and colleges, libraries, cinema halls, theaters, beaches, swimming pools, public toilets were all supplied for the whites and blacks. This was called segregation. They could not even visit the churches where the whites worshipped. Blacks could not form associations or protest against the terrible treatment. Uh,
So it was so this was the reason that when Nelson Mandela and his associates, they protested against the party system and treason. Treason means setting fire or something. So he was charged for treason, and he protested against the system, the party system, and it was this reason that he was sentenced to jail. And in 1964 he was in jail for about 27 years. Okay, let's continue. Yukta, you want to read since 1950 from here?
Yes, ma'am. Since 1950, the blacks, colored, and Indian fought against the apartheid system. They launched protests, marches, and strikes. The African National Congress was the umbrella organization that led the struggle against the policies of segregation. This included many workers' unions, and the Communist Party. Many sensitive whites also joined the ANC to oppose apartheid and played a leading role in this struggle. Several countries
Denounced.
Oh, ma'am, in my textbook, it's another word. Okay. Denounced apartheid as unjust and racist. But
And
the
racist.
white racist government continued to rule by detaining, torturing, and killing thousands of blacks and colored people. Towards a new constitution. As protests and struggles against apartheid had increased, the government realized that they could not no longer keep the blacks under their rule through resection. The whites regime changed its policies. Discriminatory laws were repealed, ban on political parties and restrictions on the media were lifted. After 28 years of imprisonment, Nelson Mandela walked out of the jail as a free man. Finally, at the midnight of 26th April 1994, the new national flag of the Republic of South Africa was unfurled, making the newly born democracy in the world. The apartheid government came to an end, paving way for the formation of a multiracial government. How did this come about? Let us hear Mandela, the first president of this new South Africa, on his extraordinary transition.
Read the translation. Hello? We cannot hear you. Nikita, you want to read?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, start. Here from here. Historical enemies.
Historical enemies succeeded in negotiating a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy exactly because
Yeah.
we were prepared to accept the inherent capacity for goodness in the other. My wish is that South Africans never give up on the belief in goodness, that they cherish that faith in human beings is the cornerstone of our democracy.
Okay. After the emergence of the new.
After the emergence of the new democratic South Africa, black leaders appealed to fellow blacks to forgive the whites for the
Atrocities.
atrocities they had committed while in power. They said, Let us build a new South Africa based on equality of all races and men and women, on democratic values, social justice, and human rights. The party that ruled through oppression and brutal killings, and the party that led the freedom struggle sat together to draw up a common constitution.
Okay, just okay, read this also. After 2 years.
After 2 years of discussion and debate, they came out with one of the finest constitutions the world has ever had. This constitution gave to its citizens the most extensive rights available in any country. Together, they decided that, and in the search for a solution to the problems, nobody should be excluded, no one should be treated as a demon. They agreed that everybody should become part of the solution, whatever they might have done or represented in the past. The preamble to the South African Constitution sums up the spirit.
Okay, so let us explain. Yeah. So so far we have studied Nelson Mandela and his associates. They opposed against the apartheid system, and he was sentenced to imprisonment in 1964. Okay. So blacks had to face many problems during the apartheid system, and they had although he had gone to jail, they protested under the flag of African National Congress. This was the flag of the ANC. Okay, now the British could not, they realized they could not repress the protests for long. So all discriminations laws were removed, and the political party that was banned was now unbanned. Okay. And Nelson Mandela came out of prison after 28 years. Okay, now this was the day sorry. This was a day of enjoyment for all. 26th April, sorry, the spelling is wrong. APRIL. 26th April 1994. Okay, so South Africa got independence from apartheid system, and Nelson Mandela became the first black president, right? Okay, now there was two options. Okay, now the blacks were in power. They had two options. They could take revenge on the white people, or they could forgive them and start a new state. Okay. So what happened? Now there was a after 2 years of discussion, black leaders said that they will forget all the old things and create a new constitution. The constitution designed. They designed the constitution in which everyone will have equal rights, whether black or white. So it took 2 years of debate and discussion, and they formed the world's finest constitution. Okay, so okay, now why do we need a constitution? Now this was they set up an example for every country in the world that we to have a good government we need a constitution. So what is a constitution? It is a set of written rules that are accepted by all the people in the country. It is a special type of book or document in which many types of rules and regulations are written, which have to be followed by all the citizens living in the country. So what does the constitution do, and why do we need a constitution? So if you all need this is a very important question that often comes. Why do we need a constitution? First, it generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for diverse groups. Like we take an example in South Africa, they were whites, they were colored, and they were black. So there was a diverse group, and in India, it is even more wider diversity is there. There is not only color, there is also different religions, and there are different tribes, and uh, there is an East India, there is a West India, there is a North India, there is a South India also. Okay, so first, so that's why do we need a constitution? First of all, it generates a degree of trust and coordination. Every group should have a trust. Second, it specifies how the government will be formed, who will be the leader, how are they going to come to power, who will have power to take which decisions. Third, it lays down limits on the powers of the government and tells us what the rights of the citizen are. So although we have leaders, we have a prime minister, we have president, we have chief ministers, although we have them, still who's the citizen, the rights of the citizens have to be protected. So this is why we need a constitution. The fourth important point is it expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society. We should have harmony and we should have happy society, where everybody is happy and everybody has equal rights. If you all want to note this down, I'll give you a minute. Okay, sure. Anybody has any doubts so far? So we've done. Why do we have? Why do we have constitution now? And we studied about South Africa, but now we are going to talk about the making of the Indian constitution. Okay. Now, Indian's constitution was inspired by the struggle in South Africa and problems faced while making the Indian constitution. Let's talk about it. It was very difficult to make a constitution for a large country with a diversified group of population like India. So, South Africa did have problems, but even our India had a wider problem. Okay, the country was born through a partition. Okay, because when the British left, they had divided India on the basis of religious differences. Okay, now this was a traumatic experience. There were, now you see some pictures of the partition on the basis of religion that had killed many thousands of people, and people shifted from here to there, and on the way many were killed. There were a lot of riots on the basis of religion. So such a situation was a great problem for the leaders of India while making the Indian constitution. And next, it was very difficult to make a constitution for a large country with a diversified group of population like India. The country was born through a partition on the basis of religious difference. This was a traumatic experience. The British had left it to the rulers of the princely states. So there were certain, the British, although the British rule, there were certain princely states also in India, like it was in Kashmir, and it was in Hyderabad. There was a Nizam of Hyderabad, and also in Assam side, that is in East India, there was a there were princely state, and the British had left it to the rulers. I mean, it was on the wish of the rulers. If you want to join India, join. If you want to stay independent, stay independent. So of course that was a problem when the leaders made the constitution, because they know a country would not be safe if there were a different country or a state inside India. Do you get it? You understand the problem so far? So this is an image of some of the leaders. We have Ambedkar, we have Nehru, we have Vallabhbhai Patel, and we have certain pictures of certain Maharajas here. Those were of the princely states. Let us do a little bit of reading. Okay, so you will understand better why we need constitution. We have discussed this. Just in your book, if you want to mark, you can mark it here. Account. Somebody read this for me. Jitendra, are you able to read? Read from here.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
constitution does many things. Yeah.
A constitution does many things. First, it generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for different kind of people to live together. Second is it specifies how the government will be constituted, who will have power to take which decisions. Third, it lays down limits on the powers of government and tells us what the rights of citizens are. And fourth, fourth, it expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society.
Okay, good. Continue. All
All
countries.
countries have constitutions that are necessarily democratic, but all countries are democratic will have constitutions. After the War of Independence
All
against
countries
the
that
Great
are
Britain,
democratic.
the Americans gave themselves a constitution. After the revolution, the French people approved a democratic constitution since it has become a practice in all democracies to have a written constitution.
All democracies have. All countries that are. It may have a written constitution in India. Okay. Read from here. Making of the Indian Constitution.
Making of the Indian Constitution, like South Africa, India's constitution was also drawn up under very difficult circumstances. The making of constitution for a huge and diverse country like India was not easy affair. At that time, the people of India were emerging from status of subjects to that of citizens. The country was born through a partition on the basis of religious differences. This was a traumatic experience for the people of India and Pakistan. At least 10 lakh people were killed on both sides of the border in partition related violence. There was another problem. The British had left it to the rulers of the princely states to decide whether they wanted to merge with India with with Pakistan or remain independent. The merger of these princely states was a difficult and uncertain task. When, when the constitution was being written, the future of country did not look as secure as it does today. The makers of constitution had anxieties about the present and the future of the country.
Okay.
The path of constitution. Should I read, ma'am?
Yeah.
Despite all the difficulties, there was one big advantage for the makers of Indian constitution. Unlike South Africa, they did not have to create a consensus about the
Democratic.
about a democratic India should look like. Much of the consensus had evolved during the freedom struggle. Our national movement was not merely a struggle against a foreign rule. It was also a struggle to rejuvenate our country and transform our society and politics. There were sharp differences of opinion within the freedom struggle about the path India should take after independence. Such differences exist even today. Yet some basic ideas had come to be accepted by almost everyone. As far as 1928, Motilal Nehru and eight other Congress leaders drafted a constitution for India. In 1931, the resolution at the Karachi session of the Indian National Congress dwelt on how independent India's constitution should look like. Both these documents were committed to the inclusion of
Inclusion.
universal franchise, right to freedom and equality, and to protecting the right of minorities in the Constitution of Independent India. Thus, some basic values were accepted by all the leaders before the Constituent Assembly to met to
Met to deliberate. Hello.
met to deliberate on the Constitution. The familiarity with political institutions of colonial rule also helped develop an agreement over the institutional design. The British rule had given voting rights only to a few. On the basis of the British had introduced very weak legislatures. Elections were held in 1937 to provincial legislatures and the ministries all over British India. There were not fully democratic governments, but the experience gained by Indians in the working of the legislative institutions proved to be very useful for the country in setting up its own institutions and working in them. This is why the Indian Constitution adopted many institutional details and procedures from colonial laws like Government of India Act 1935. Years
Okay,
of thinking.
just hold on. So, okay, now I'll give you notes on how. So Motilal Nehru and 8 others, they had already prepared a draft constitution of India in 1928. So let's talk about the voting rights. So India followed the British Act that was in the Government of India Act in 1935. Okay, and that was and the Constituent Assembly, they had not given everybody the voting right. They had given only a few sections of the society the voting right. But so they took some points from there, and now a body of 299 representatives who were elected from every part of India. So they got together and they formed and they got elected in 26th November 1949. Okay, and the constitution was passed in 26th January 1950. That was celebrated as the Republic Day. Okay, now continue reading.
Years of thinking and deliberation on the framework of the Constitution had another benefit. Our leaders gained confidence to learn from other countries. But on our own terms, many of our leaders were inspired by the ideas of French Revolution, the practice of parliamentary democracy in Britain, and the Bill of Rights in the US. The socialist revolution in Russia had inspired many Indians to think of shaping a system based on social and economic equality. Yet they were questioning whether these things suited our country. All the factors contributed to the making of our constitution. The Constituent Assembly, who
Okay,
then.
we will continue this later. So far, everybody understand what we have studied?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so we spoke about what was the situation in South Africa, and after they got independence, they were the first country who formed the best constitution all over the world. Okay, so okay, we'll continue this chapter in the next class. Okay, anybody has any question? Please ask. So Litika, did you understand the class? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. So I will advise you all to please do read the chapter thoroughly, okay? And our next class, when we finish the chapter, I will share notes and question and answers also. Okay? Okay, bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Ma'am.